Okay, this will be a continuation of Hebrews 11, and we'll pick up here again with Moses. I'd like to go back and look at some things about Moses and where he fled. He forsook Egypt, where he went. And when you understand where he went, it makes it easier to discover where Mount Sinai is. And so he forsook Egypt. And then here it says, and by faith they passed through the Red Sea as by dry land, which the Egyptians are saying to do were drowned. Okay, so scientifically, the Lord brought up an east wind, cold wind, and it separated the waters. And underneath the water was a natural land bridge that gently sloped down, to 1,000 feet, and then back up to the other side, 8 miles across. And that land bridge was about a mile wide. And on the north and south of the land bridge, the water was 5,000 feet deep. And so what we need to do, I do believe this would be enjoyable, to see where they went. So they're coming out of Egypt, they come over here, and then crossed over here by Nueva. And then over here is Mount Sinai in Midian. Okay, first we're going to look at the place that Moses fled. Okay, so it says here in Exodus 2:15 that Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian. Okay, he dwelt in the land of Midian. And then again he repeats here, now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and then they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flocks. Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro Bodin, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of God, even to Horeb. So Mount Horeb is also Mount Sinai. Now while he was over there, that's when the Lord called him, and he was beating around a bush, not certain if he wanted to become the leader of Israel. And he asked the Lord, who do I say sent me? And here's the very first time uppercase letters are on words. And I am that I am. And then I am. So you have 3 I ams. Isn't that amazing? 3 I ams, 7 words. First time that's found in the Bible. And in verse 12, he said, certainly I will be with thee. So the Lord is talking to Moses. I am is talking to Moses. I will be with thee, and this shall be a token unto thee that I have sent thee. When thou hast brought forth the people out of Egypt, so out of Egypt, ye shall serve God upon this mountain. Okay, so what mountain is he talking about? So, and then it said, the Lord said unto Moses, in Midian, go, return into Egypt. So where did Moses go? Well, obviously he went to Midian. Now it's interesting that the Bible maps, many of them rarely have the children of Israel actually crossing the Red Sea in them. You're starting to see a few of them now having the children of Israel crossing the Red Sea due to Ron Wyatt's discoveries. So here's an example. This is a Jehovah's Witness map, back of their Bibles. Okay, and so you got here Egypt. And it looks like they're trying to get him to cross the Red Sea right there, but that makes no sense there. Plus, there's no evidence. And they're coming around here, and they come into Mount Sinai. Okay, now look here. Over here is Midian. See how easy that is? Midian. So if Moses is over here in Midian, then Mount Sinai's got to be over here in Midian. Now, why do they have it over here? Well, there was a Catholic queen or empress or whatever named Helena, and she kind of thought the idea was here. And then there was some Saint Catherine, some saint, And they put a monastery right here because they thought this is where Mount Sinai was. So they put St. Catherine's Monastery there. And that's the monastery that they found in a garbage can. The beloved Sinaiticus manuscripts, that and the Vaticanus are the two preference ones of the new Bibles. But Mount Sinai, as you can see right there, Horeb. So Mount Sinai, Horeb, same. But over here's Midian. Over here's Midian. Okay, so that's very important to understand. And let's look at some other maps before we get into the real map. So here we have one. They're coming out over here. I don't know if this would be the Sea of Reeds where they wandered through, and then all of Pharaoh's horses drowned in there. Okay, and of course they're coming down to the Jabal Musa. That's the Mount Sinai. That's the Catholic place where they think it is. But as you can see, they're not crossing the Red Sea. Okay, and map number 2 here. Okay, they're coming down, meandering around here. And no place do they cross the Red Sea. They come across the St. Catherine's Monastery, Mount Sinai, and then they come back up here. So this map doesn't even have them crossing the Red Sea anywhere. Map number 3. Oh, this one's more colorful. Again, they're coming around here. Oh, right here, they probably dipped their feet in the water. And then they came back around. And again, Mount Sinai coming back up here. No crossing of the Red Sea. This is called Mount Sinai Peninsula. But this is still today all Egyptian territory. Saudi Arabia is over here. Midian's there. Okay, Midian is where Moses fled. Okay, so here's map number 4. Just to keep telling you. No, okay, look here. They might have had them trying to cross the Red Sea there. And dipped their feet in the water. And came around and then come down to the Catholic St. Catherine's Monastery, Mount Sinai. And then came back up here, not really crossing the Red Sea. But notice they do have Midian where it's supposed to be. So, hey, these folks get them right sometimes. And here's the last map that I have. So they come down around through here, dip their toes in the Red Sea there and come back. Maybe wade in the Red Sea right here, traditional route of the Exodus, they say. And then here's Mount Sinai, the Catholic thing. And then they come back. Oh, they got them kind of walking upside to here, Gulf of Aqaba. But again, Midian's over here. Okay, so that's where Moses went. That's where Moses was beating around the bush when the Lord wanted him to lead the children of Israel out of Egypt, and that would be including here, out of Egypt. And so he has to be over here somewhere, and let's see if we can find anything else. Now, the Bible believers, I think I've seen a map where they think they crossed up here. So they got them crossing somewhere, so they meandered down here, maybe cross, or I don't know. But they still go to the Catholic monastery over here at Mount Sinai. I would think the Bible believers would at least believe the Bible. Okay, because right here's Midian. Okay, right there's Midian. Well, let's get a more modern, up-to-date map. Okay, this is Google Earth. Isn't that amazing? Amazing. Now, if you look at right there, see, there's a little spot right there, flat place, 3 million people can get there. Had to move myself up a little bit, and so we'll see if we can enlarge this, see what we can find here. Okay, in my map, I have Al-Bad, and that's where Jethro was down in here, and I'll show you some more of this. There's Nuweiba, and there's this place where the children of Israel came down this little wadi valley through here, and there's a road right through here now, and right there's where they camped. Let's look at Google Maps, see if that kind of helps us out here. Again, we got to enlarge it a little bit more. Large it. So on this map, you see Jabal al-Lawz. That would be Mount Sinai. That would be Mount Sinai. I want to look at the terrain here. Maybe this way, if I can look at it this way. So right here's Jabal al-Lawz. Okay, and right here's where they crossed over, and they came over here. Let's see if we can find any more evidence. We'll get a little bit larger here, see if we can find something. And there's Jabal laws. And I want to see if I can find springs of Moses. Well, looky there. Springs of Moses. Let's get rid of this. Springs of Moses. See, that's where he came. Down in this area. See, so if you go back here, we can type in Springs of Moses here. See if we can get it here. Places. And looky right there, my friend. Springs of Moses. And that's where he met the daughters of Jethro. So as you can see, amazing, just amazing. This is fascinating. And so here we got the Red Sea, and we're going higher and higher, not into space. We're just going up. And so you can see how this flat area here, right there's where 3 million people can camp out. And they came across here, and they came down in this direction. Moses came down here down in here, and there's Abad. That's where Jethro was, and there's Mount Sinai right there. I don't know about you, this just fascinates me. Just fascinating. And so here's Google Maps. Let's expand out a little bit on Google Maps. Springs of Moses. So he was over in here. He came over here, and he's making sure he's going to get as far away as he can get down in here. Springs of Moses. It's a tourist attraction. See, Springs of Moses. I don't know about you, but that just fascinates me. And so, of course, this is a part of how I came up with these ideas. Of course, I went with the scriptures first and was able to find the evidence. Now, if we go to Galatians 4:25, so we have this in the New Testament. For this Agar, okay, that's the H in the Old Testament, Hagar. For this Agar is Mount Sinai in Arabia. I mean, how much plainer can you get it? Why in the world? I don't get it. I don't understand why folks would be so quick to discount something. I mean, it says in 1 Thessalonians, you got to prove all things. Hold fast that which is good. Mount Sinai is located in Saudi Arabia, not in the Sinai Peninsula, because that is Egypt. Now, this is where Paul went for his discipleship courses, where the Lord Jesus Christ was his personal private tutor. So here we have here, and right down here, I think it's down here, where it says, look at there, I went into Arabia. Well, that's where Paul went. There's something going on down there. So back in here, we got the Springs of Moses. Okay, now right up in here, today, this is the Suez Canal. It runs 120 miles. And if you use math is kind of a pure science, according to the Pythagorean theorem for a sphere. Now, I've used this for squaring a garage. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. That's how you square a garage. But there's a Pythagorean theorem for sphere, and like on the Earth, if a person actually does think the Earth is a sphere, the curvature for 120 miles, what you do is you take 120 times 120 times 0.666 of a foot, which is 2/3 of a foot. So according to the science of math, okay, from here to here, according to the sphere, if the Earth is a sphere, this water should curve 9,590 feet from here to hear. Now, if you want to believe that, that is your choice, but the pure science of physics reveals that water seeks its own level. Okay, and so, yeah, that's something to tinker about, think about. Okay, so I'm fascinated with this right here, where the children of Israel came across here, crossed right there, and then parked around the Mount Sinai over here in Arabia. Well, I also find something fascinating is when you go down here to the bottom of Saudi Arabia, there's something down here that's just fascinating. So this city right here, now according to Islam, and they do get some things right, possibly, this place was first established by Shem. Yeah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And look at the buildings in this place. These have been there for thousands of years. Look at that, just fascinating. I mean, the technology that was in the past is just fascinating. And so, yeah, that's just something I find very amazing. Just amazing what happens here. Okay, let's go back to the text as far as Hebrews 11. So, okay, we got Red Sea covered. Okay, by faith the walls of Jericho fell down after they were compassed about 7 days. Okay, you know what a compass is. So they walked around this small city, and they walked around it once for 6 days. If you've read that story, you can read it there. And 7 times the seventh day, so obviously it's a small city. If it's the size of Jerusalem, probably smaller than Jerusalem. And you can walk around Old City of Jerusalem about an hour, 15 minutes. So on that 7th day, one of those days had to be a Sabbath, so God overrode the Sabbath for the Jews back there. And then these walls fell down flat. Now, how in the world did they do that? God has amazing abilities, and man once in a while catches up with some things of God. And this is something maybe you could take a gander at, where remember the Twin Towers on 9/11? Remember how that took place? And remember that your eyes showed you that metal and concrete and windows turned to dust. See that dust? Now I know what the narrative is, supposedly a couple planes, supposedly, people from Iraq, that's why we started a war, even though I don't think any of the flyers or supposed flyers were from Iraq. But look at that, it just turned to dust. They didn't burn up. They didn't slam to the ground. They just turned to dust. And this is something that's called direct energy weapon. Now, maybe the Lord has something like that, where David over back here needed the Lord's intervention, and he told David, thou shalt not go up, but fetch a compass behind them, and come upon them over against the mulberry trees, and let it be when thou hearest the sound of a going in the tops of the mulberry tree. What is that? The sound of a going in the mulberry trees? Something very unusual there. And Isaiah referenced this, where he said, for the Lord shall rise up as in Mount Perazim. He shall be wroth as in the valley of Gibeon, that he may do his work, his strange work, and bring to pass his act, his strange act. Ah, the Lord's amazing. Well, something like this, you could type in Dr. Judy Wood, type that in up here, and you can see some of her videos where she investigated this and looked at the evidence, and the evidence reveals that those buildings just turned to dust. Yeah. And there were some people down like in the first or second floor, I think the first floor, and after the dust settled, they looked around and said, where did the buildings go? That's something to think about. Why is that significant? Well, these people, many of these people here, their faith was demonstrated by disobeying the powers that be. Yeah, Moses' parents. They didn't obey the government. The midwives didn't obey the government. Moses went against the government of his day. And Rahab, I guess faith is when you stand as a sovereign and you obey God rather than men. That's what the apostles did in Acts 5, verse 29. Sometimes people call it civil disobedience, but I think a better term is obeying God rather than men, or obeying a higher law rather than a lesser law. Or in America, we got an amazing thing that if a supposed law violates the Constitution, then it's not even a law. It's null and void. By faith, the harlot Rahab perished not with them that believed not, when she had received the spies with peace. What did she do? She lied to the king of Jericho. She chose lying over murder. If she would have told them the truth, they would have murdered the two spies. And God honored her faith of standing against the unjust decrees of a political figurehead. That's kind of a common thing with some of these folks. I mean, you're a sovereign. Okay, and it says, what shall I say more? Paul is saying, okay, so I'm just going to cite some people, for the time would fail me to tell of Gideon and his 300, and of Barak, Deborah and Barak, and of Samson. Of course, you know about Samson. He's pretty well known character. I mean, unusual character. Okay, and then Jephthah. Jephthah made a whopping mistake that cost the life of his daughter. Didn't have to. And of David also, he stuck David in the middle of all these judges. And then Samuel, and of the prophets. Now Samuel, his mama put him under the tutelage of Eli, but Eli's two sons were sexual predators. I mean, they were just real perverts. And what does that tell us? That sort of happens amongst the ministry, where the feline fanatics have that problem with the priest, and independent fundamental Baptists seem to be having a problem with that. And they're not the only one. It's in every area. But what Samuel shows, that even though those offenses take place, and the Bible does, they say they take place, Samuel didn't use it as an excuse to walk away from God. It wasn't a stumbling block for Samuel. It was a stepping stone. And so, yeah, that's a tremendous testimony. Okay, and I feel bad for the offenses that have occurred to people. And some of them are just absolutely grave offenses, where a couple of my so-called mentors landed in jail, and two others should have been in jail. But, yeah, it's just amazing. And of the prophets, so you got, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, so forth, so on. He's just citing, who through faith subdued kingdoms. Now, Jeremiah was an unusual character, where God used him to write against kingdoms. Who through faith subdued kingdoms. Well, the prophets Elijah did in 1 Kings 18, and Elisha, and then wrought righteousness. That's an unusual thing. They wrought righteousness. Back in the Old Testament, in Habakkuk, this phrase, but the just shall live by his faith. Now, when Paul cited this in Romans 1 and Galatians 3, he dropped the word his. I went through this back in chapter 10. And in chapter 10 of Hebrews, verse 38, 39, when Paul cited this for the Hebrews, he put a P.S. So there's something different going on there, that's for sure. That's about all that a person needs to admit at the start. Just admit something's not right. Okay, and it's just like, okay, something's not right, putting Mount Sinai over there in Sinai Peninsula. I may not know what's right, but something's not right, but now I know what's right. So he said he wrought righteousness, obtained promises. Yeah, some of them did. Stopped the mouth of lions. Okay, Daniel did. Okay, Daniel was, a victim of human trafficking. And then he was... body was mutilated where he couldn't have children, a eunuch. Man, oh man. Victory, stopped the mouth of lions, quenched the violence of fire. Okay, that would have been Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. That's their Hebrew names. People know them as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Escaped the edge of the sword. That would have been David. Out of weakness was made strong. Well, Samson experienced that. Waxed valiant in fight. Well, Joshua experienced that. Jephthah experienced that. Gideon experienced that. Yeah, waxed valiant in fight. Turned to flight the armies of the aliens. Is that a strange flesh thing, or is that a flesh and blood thing? Who knows? The giants, that they fought. Turned to flight the armies of the women who received their dead to life again. There were two women back in, one with Elisha and one with Elijah. Okay. And then you got the widow of Nain in the New Testament. Now here at this colon, these are all positive in that they received the promises on earth. They had, like the fairy tales say, a happy ending. Okay. Now this is going to go on the other side of the coin, and others were tortured. Some of the Christian novels that are written, stories of people in the past, will usually glorify the great victories of these Christians, which, we're rejoicing in. But for everyone that had a victory on earth, there are 1,000 that were tortured during the Inquisition. And this is an unusual statement. Not accepting deliverance. What does that imply? Does that imply that they could have avoided the torture by asking God to deliver them? That they might obtain a better resurrection. So these folks who refuse God's immediate deliverance believe that they were going to have a better resurrection by suffering for the Lord. I would dare say that's what's in their mind. And others had trial of cruel mockings and scourgings. Okay, mockings, most definitely Jeremiah. Scourgings, the Lord was scourged. Yea, moreover, bonds and imprisonment. Okay, Joseph spent time in prison, bonds, chained. Jeremiah most certainly did. Bonds and imprisonments. That's what they experienced. They were stoned. Okay, Stephen was stoned here in the New Testament. In the Old Testament, that would have been Naboth. Naboth in 1 Kings 21 is the very first time the word governed is found in the Bible. And it was Jezebel, the Old Testament Hilary, goading Ahab, Bill, to confiscate someone's property. Unjustly, obviously. And that had been Naboth. They were sawn asunder. You see, what this reveals is the typical government policy. And these people, many of these people up here stood against that. They were sawn asunder. History claims that Isaiah was put inside a hollow log and sawn in sunder. Were tempted, were slain with the sword. They wandered about in sheepskins and goatskins. being destitute, afflicted, tormented. Then look at this. I find this fascinating. Of whom the world was not worthy. And then Lord puts a little thing that we use in text message, a little smile, 2 eyes and a smile. These people were so holy and dedicated to God. They were so sold out for God that the Lord said the world was not worthy to have these folks walk on the world, on the land. They wandered in deserts and in mountains and in dens and in caves of the earth. Why is Paul writing about this? Because many of the Jewish people, the Hebrew people, many of the Gentile righteous of the tribulation will be wandering in deserts and mountains and dens and caves of the earth. And in fact, in Deuteronomy a couple of times, the Lord told them, I'm going to scatter you from one end of the earth to the other end, all over the place. This is meant to encourage the many Hebrews of the tribulation to endure to the end. And he said this, and these all, having obtained a good report through faith, received not the promise. Meaning they didn't receive the promise on earth, but they're going to have it in eternity. And then he says, God having provided some better thing for us Hebrews, that they, Old Testament saints, all of these Old Testament saints, without us, Hebrews of the tribulation, should not be made perfect. Now that's kind of an unusual idea, but possibly Paul gave it in an example of this in 1 Thessalonians, where he said this, for now we live, that'd be he, Timotheus, who else was with him at the front of this book, or this letter, Silvanus, Timotheus, okay, that's who he's talking about, those three, where he said, now we live if ye stand fast in the Lord. It's about like, they say cats can have 9 lives. Well, my friend, you can have more than one life. You can have as many lives as God gives you influence. And when these people stand fast in the Lord, in essence, you're living. And you're reaping rewards. You know what? A child and a grandchild, the best thing you can do for your parents is an amazing idea found in Proverbs 17, where it says, children are the crown of old men. So grandchildren, they give a crown to an old man. How? By living right and faithful. You see, the best thing I can do for my parents, my dad who's in heaven right now, and my grandparents, the best thing I can do is to live right, to live as they taught me. And I could build rewards for them, a crown for them. You see, that's why in Hebrews he's talking about if the Hebrew people of the tribulation endure to the end and remain faithful to the end, the folks before who are a testimony to them will receive rewards. If you go to James, there's an interesting individual in James mentioned. And it says over here in James, take my brethren the prophets, who have spoken in the name of the Lord, for an example of suffering, affliction, and patience. He's encouraging, this is written doctrinally to the tribes that are scattered throughout the world, from one end of the earth to the other end. He says, consider the prophets. Consider Job. Consider Job. When Job was able to go to heaven after the resurrection of Christ, and he found a Bible, because forever, O Lord, thy word is settled in heaven. And it says here, behold, we count them happy which endure. What's he talking about? Endure. Oh, we'll come about. And then the end, endure to the end. When Job found James' letter up in heaven and he read this, and he probably thought to himself, oh, it was worth it. It was worth it. You see, the Lord didn't tell Job on earth why he went through what he went through. He didn't tell him on earth. But he found out when he got to heaven. What an encouraging thing. You see, here where Jesus said, he shall endure to the end, the same shall be saved. I know Pentecostals apply that to hold their people in bondage. But he's not even talking to a Christian here. Gospel of the kingdom, the end, abomination of desolation. What is that? Human sacrifice in the holy place. They're in Judea. Flee to the mountains. Go to the deserts. Go to Petra. And he says, why? This shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. The Lord is giving these examples through Paul to the Hebrews, the ones who didn't obtain the promises on earth. He's given them as examples, and if they remain faithful, these people will be getting awards in heaven. Isn't that just fascinating? Oh man, the blessed book. Okay, well, if you have any questions or comments, please place them down below, and may the Lord bless you.